I started at 10U and took teams all the way up while I was still coaching 18. So I was coaching 18s and then had a 10U, then they were 12. And so then they all then merged up to 18 and then going back down. So hopefully some of my experience as a coach, as a parent, and now having a daughter in college, I can just say, hey, here's some things to be mindful of. This is what is really important, but I understand because I'm a parent too.
Welcome to the Car Ride Home podcast. This is going to be a fun ride today. I've got Suzy Willemssen joining me today, the founder of the Glory Fastpitch and head coach of the 18 and under Virginia Glory team, head coach at O'Connell High School, University of Iowa softball alum. I'm going to drop a Caitlin Clark reference here soon for you. And recently inducted USSSA Hall of Famer. Suzy, welcome to the Car Ride Home.
Jamie, it's so great to be with you. And I say, let's buckle the seatbelts and let's get rolling.
We have to set the stage first in the car. So you're in charge of the music. What are we listening to on the car ride home?
Ooh, I like a lot of different types, but you got a little Tina Marie, a little Donna Summer. I like beats, so I like, house music. I also played the French horn, so orchestra is good, but that's, we're thinking jam, like hype up, like get in the soul, get a little rhythm. So, anything got some beats going on, we're going to vibe it.
We learned so much about people with this particular question. I love it. And did you say you play the French horn or played past tense?
Well, I could still play it, but yes, I played the French horn, for like 8 years. So yes.
Very cool. Very cool. Woman of many talents here. Next most important question, Suzy. Where are we eating on the car ride home?
Oh, well, if anybody really knows me, food is not really a big thing. So we're going to go to Dunkin', get some coffee and a multigrain bagel with butter. That's how we start the day.
You might be the only softball player in history that has said that about food. I'm gonna document that there. When we talk about car rides home, it's synonymous with us in sports, especially you being a mom as well.
Mm-hmm.
What is your most memorable car ride home? What is the first thing that comes to mind when I ask you that?
Probably it was with my son. So, and what was really funny about it is a couple nights before I was giving my parents' meeting speech about letting your child own their journey, so forth and so on. And I always tell jokes about myself anyway, being a parent. So I'm taking my son to his basketball game. I think he might have been 10, 11 years old. And I'm like, Bobby, you should probably be like the number 2. I don't, instead of like the number 3, because I think, Jimmy would be better there. And then he just says, Mom, guess what? You're not the coach. And I just burst out laughing. And I'm like, I need to be listening to my own words that I was telling the parents when I do crack on myself. But I'm like, you are so right. So, we know the things, just say, just love to watch you play. But I think a lot of just trying to take the lead of your child. So I would try to listen to my words I was telling others.
It's so interesting of what stands out. And you wear multiple hats as being a mom of athletes and also a coach, including coaching your daughter, Christina. Did you find moments? How did you, especially in a car ride home after a game, a tournament, how did you separate being mom and being coach?
I don't know how well I did it. It's put on some Tina Marie and listen to some music and let's go get some Dunkin'. And so we got stuff I'm chewing in my mouth, So I don't know. I just would really try to remember the things I told others. Sometimes that's what I would joke. I'm like, hey, when I write my little parables and things to you, actually, they're more reminders to myself. So sometimes I probably did fine and other times I didn't. And I know that was just struggle. So I'll admit that was a struggle trying to separate those two. She'd probably be the best one to answer that question.
We'll get
But
her on. We'll
I
get
think
her on
we,
the
we
next
survived.
We survive. That's the key. We're going to go back to you and your roots. Can you walk through and give us a visual? What did it look like of your very first introduction to the game of softball? Where were you? How old were you? Where were you playing? Do you remember even the team name of how you got started into softball?
The first thing that actually did as far as diamonds, I was the first girl to play in the boys' baseball league. So we didn't have sports as we know it these days. So if you wanted to play, you usually had to venture out into the realm of the boys because that's where the organized sports were. So I was the first one to play in the boys baseball league, and actually we didn't have fast pitch softball until sophomore of my high school year. So I played slow pitch with the women. So I was like 12, 13 years old playing the slow pitch because I just loved to compete. And really, truly, baseball was the only thing. But there was a ball, and we had umpires and uniforms. And I mean, that was just an absolute joy. So it would have been then sophomore my high school year when our school system finally incorporated fast pitch. So that was, again, so cool to be able to represent your school and wear a uniform, that community pride, and then playing the sport that I loved finally. And nobody knew how to windmill. So we would go and play these other small towns in Iowa that had been playing for a while, and nobody even knew how to teach it. So we would just kind of do our best. Our pitcher then did something, and so she had an injury. Nobody knew how to pitch, so I'm out there doing the Joan Joyce, just slingshot and trying to get strikes over the plate. But yeah, so it had been sophomore year in my high school.
I can relate. Growing up in a small town in Texas, I played with the boys my entire life. And we had
Mm-hmm.
softball, but it was much smaller and I felt not as competitive. So once I started playing with the boys, I just kept playing with the boys too until
Yeah,
finally I got to high school and I was like, all right, I'll switch over. I'll go play with the girls now.
yeah,
So
and
I
I think
can
you did pretty well. So
it turned out okay. What did that next step? Because then now you go to the University of Iowa. What did that look like? Can you walk us through the experience and that journey of how you ended up at Iowa playing softball?
growing up, my dad was a golfer at the University of Iowa. So ever since I can remember, we would go to the Iowa football games, tailgates. So it was just kind of inside of me to be at the University of Iowa. So, but this was so long ago, it was still the AIAW. So if people really get into the history of the game and the AIAW, that was before NCAA. So it was a lot different. Didn't have a helmet. I mean, it was a completely different game. So really can't compare it to what people realize now when they look at the game. It was just, again, another great way to go and play, and you're playing other colleges and stuff. It was just it was fabulous. So, but it was the AAW, and then that was right like 1978, 79, and then the NCAA came in. So, but I think it would be a pretty cool topic in history about that time of year with
Mhm.
college fast pitch softball. And Iowa had Dr. Christine Grant, who was on the forefront of Title IX and women. And here's March, so we talk about women and pioneering in the sports. And so Iowa was one of the holdouts of not wanting to join the NCAA. And that's when they actually had two national champions.
Well, it's so important. Hey, we're in Women's History Month too, and it's
Mm-hmm.
important. I know at Texas A&M, when we go back for our alumni, we see there's AIAW champions, national champions that in Texas A&M played in it, and hearing
Right.
some of the stories of those players from the 70s or early 80s and just where they played, what the uniforms were, playing at
Mm-hmm.
community parks, traveling on vans. And this isn't that long ago either. And to now, for me, it's I go home to and they're in a $32 million stadium. And so I think it's super important to recognize those years and just the foundation and what the pioneers of our sport did. And now, we're watching Love Stadium at Oklahoma in with 4,000 plus. See, it's incredible when it comes. So I think it's very
Right.
important to bring up some of that history, and especially somebody that lived through it and going through, what that looked like in the transition.
Yeah. I think sometimes also that help kind of forge a bit of kind of an internal like grit, just something inside because you really wanted it. You had to just find ways. And I look at today's athletes, and I mean, we were able to go and fail and struggle and do things without it being plastered on social media and things of that nature. So, our struggles and challenges, in my opinion, are much different than what today's athlete needs to contend with. And sometimes I'm like, I'm glad I was back at that time. Maybe we didn't have the opportunities, but there was a purity and a sense of just playing because that's what it was and not having to worry about all the outside noise. Where today's athletes, sometimes I reflect and tell parents, I mean, can you imagine if I went to your work and I whipped out my phone and I followed you around and videoed every single thing that you're doing during the day? And when you make a mistake, when you muffed up, and then you know what I'm going to do with that video? I'm going to put it on, I'm going to stream it, and then it's going to be there for everybody to see. And so when we say, hey, embrace the struggle and, failure is an option, which it is, and that's what we need to keep working on with, but we got to do it in private. Kids today don't get to do that. And trying not to compare. And I mean, it's all out there. It's all out there. So I think we really need to do a job of creating tools and helping equip our athletes today be able to manage that because the expectations are so much different and greater. And then to say, hey, go ahead and fail. Well, we could do it in private. Today's kids can't.
It's a good point. We joke sometimes like, man, I'm glad we didn't have social media when I was around. But
Yeah.
also I am glad that we didn't. So I'm gonna put it back on you, Suzy, because not you are your mom and you're a coach of 18 under players or high school players. So along
Mhm.
those lines and what kids are facing these days, and you majority of your athletes are going on to play in college as well too. So what are you doing as a coach to help prepare them for those moments and those things that they face now?
A lot is having the former athletes that are now in college go and kind of talk and say some things and kind of let them share their experiences. But a lot is just being out ahead of it and trying to do things that I like to say just drip, drip, drip. Um, that we can just incorporate just in daily conversation, be it with the travel ball girls and my high school girls. One of the most tremendous resources that I think coaches need to check in is what drives winning. What drives winning is absolutely phenomenal. And Brett Ledbetter and Becky Burley, but Brett Ledbetter is one of the most incredible human beings as far as helping navigate things when he's been helping a lot of teams, one being Iowa and Caitlin Clark and helping her manage her things. So a lot of free content, but it helps really frame things and give perspective and actual tools. His books are marvelous to help a coach reach the player and really have conversations and being vulnerable. So it's just fantastic. So it's doing things of that nature and engaging the athlete and actually asking what they need. That should be our guide.
Just because you just mentioned her, and I'm over here as a fan of just sports in general, but women's sports, and watching what Caitlin Clark is doing in this fan base that she is captivating across country. What does it mean for you, being an alum, being somebody from there, and also somebody passionate about women's sports too?
Talk about double joy for me again, being an alum and just seeing a female out there. I mean, when their games are getting more people watching than an NBA game, and I really reflect and I'm going, I can't think of a female athlete that has captured the imagination and the attention of so many different individuals. I mean, it was funny at an event the other day. Somebody come up to me, found I'm from Iowa, and it was um, a gentleman, and he just wanted to talk about Caitlin Clark, and I'm like, this is great. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like it wasn't even a basketball fan, let alone women's college basketball fan, but just talking about her. And I think what she has done for just women's basketball, but women's sport in general, it's like, hello, yeah, people will pay attention. I mean, it is there. And the same thing for college softball. When you look at some of the marvelous athletes that are out there and that are happening, just women's sports is just tremendous, just tremendous. And she was just one of them that are kind of a point person right now. But we could just go through the whole list of female athletes in softball, and college seems to really be the ones that ignite it. So just exciting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's fun and it's visible. And I think that's the biggest thing too, is it's more and more visible. It makes it easy for us to watch. Well,
Right.
I want to get into, because I think we've known each other through the softball world, but now specifically with the Alliance and your Virginia Glory
Mm-hmm.
organization, can you go back to the very beginning, and how that got started with, even if it was your very first team, how did you guys start Virginia Glory, and what has that growth of the organization looked like?
Well, it's an interesting story. So I had helped create another organization. I've been doing that for about 10 years. And the Washington Glory professional fast pitch team was based out of our area in Northern Virginia. So I would go to their games and I'd watch them play. And, there's like Natasha Watley, Kat Osterman. I mean, it was the MPF, just fabulous. And it was like, oh my gosh, somehow to be a part of that because I'm watching the pros and Carrie Deaver Boas. And I mean, and the Washington Glory was like the champions. So they decided um, to start a developmental program and partnered with a local facility. So that's where the Washington Glory players would practice, train. And so I got hired to be their 16U developmental coach. Well, that year, interesting things happened. So we started that August. And what ended up happening by that April, the Washington Glory was going to be under some new ownership. Well, it didn't quite materialize. And so the USSSA group bought them and they became the Pride. So the Pride was a former Washington Glory. This is like 2010. But we still had our team that we called it Glory Diamond Elite. So we did it for that August, fall, and summer. And they were no longer here, but I had this core group of girls. And I said, hey, like, I've done this before. Um, if you're willing, we can just have our one little team and we'll just go out because I kind of know how to navigate things. And who's in? And everybody was in. And so I called the team Glory Gold. And so we were out there doing our bits. Then there was a 10U team that was going to move up to 12U. And I trained them and they were like, hey, what do you think about, having a 12U team? And I'm like, sure, why not? Let's go. And that was Coach Mertz, who was also inducted in the Hall of Fame with me last week. So he became the second team. And then people would go, hey, what do you think about, having a 14U team? Could we? And I'm like, sure, let's go. So honestly, that's kind of how things have grown. I think we got like 18 or 19 teams now. Most of us are based in Virginia, Northern Virginia, but we've got a couple out in the Midwest. So not into trying to franchise, but it was people just contacting me and asking if they, and I say, do you want to be part of our mission? We have a conversation. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but so it's kind of a little different. That's how it started, just kind of grassroots.
I actually hear that quite a bit with the orgs of like, hey, what do you think? Hey, sure, come on. It seems to be, especially for some of these organizations at the very beginning. Like, hey, can my team join? Like, okay. What does it look like structurally
Yeah.
for the Virginia Glory organization now? Are you doing a lot of day to day? Are you working with the teams? Do you have others that with you with the Glory that are working with the teams? I always like this question because everybody's a little bit different.
The teams have a lot of autonomy. So I will help them as much as they want. So some teams I help train, I'm a little more connected with. Other ones, they kind of had their own little thing. So, but I would say the main thing is that we all are under the same mission. And, our tagline is like purpose driven softball, but to us, that's just not words. And so what just fills my heart is everybody realize that we represent each other. And it's just like, whoa, when I just see the interactions, when I get comments from others regarding how a team was at a tournament or what they are doing. And then again, it's just that kind of collective thing, but everybody kind of gets to do it their way because there's so many different dynamics. So I try to make it that way as well because when your boots in the ground, you know what's going to be the best way for you rather than me saying, hey, this is how it needs to go. But it's that overarching character, this integrity, this is the way we do things. Everybody's all in that direction, and they just kind of do it their own way a little bit when it gets down to the finer details.
I don't know if this is even a secret anymore, but the talent in Virginia is real in that part of the country,
Yes.
whether it is the individual players that come out of that area,
Mm-hmm.
the teams in travel ball that are out of that area. I remember, I'm gonna date myself a little bit, but the Shamrocks back in the day
Yes.
were the
Yes.
big team from that area. The college programs around there. Can you speak a little bit to just the talent that is around you and the growth of softball from the youth level all the way up in your part of the country?
I wish I could give you an answer. I don't, it just is. Um, you have like Valerie Cagle at Clemson. She was homeschooled. So even for some of us in Virginia, since she was homeschooled, like, oh my goodness, wow. I don't know. I don't know the answer. It just is. Um, and it's funny when you mention Coach Tommy with the Shamrocks, because that's whose job I took over at high school. So, but it was really cool for us because the Shamrocks were the first team um, to win the ASA Gold when the ASA was like 64 teams, a little
Mhm.
different format, like in 2005. It was kind of like when Michigan won. I mean, on that side
Yep.
of on the East Coast, nobody had ever won the World Series, and it was at the same time then the Shamrocks won the ASA Gold when it was always dominated by the California team. So uh, I don't have really a good answer for that other than it just is.
There needs to be a tagline under Virginia softball about the pitchers that come out of there. Like just off the
Yes,
top of my head, let's
yes,
because I played against Angela Tencher at Virginia Tech, but then
yes,
obviously you have Odyssey, Megan Good, Jalen Ford, Emma Limley recently. And I could probably name a
yes,
Cagle, Sandercock from Virginia. Like these are all out of the
yes,
same state. It's
yes.
unreal.
And I like to say Catherine was a glory girl, so and went to O'Connell, so all these little connecting things. But their stories are just remarkable. But I would say it's like everybody else; they just really put in the time and invested. I mean, their stories are just cool, just fabulous. But I think that's like the common thread when you get to somebody at that level, when you look at the dedication that they did to become the best in their craft. So, but yeah, the pitchers, Katie Coots, who now at Oklahoma State, Kristen Fleet at James Madison. So when you do look down the line, you see a lot of Virginia pitchers.
I'm actually proud of myself. I did not prep for that. I just went off the top of my.
Yeah, two Virginia girls at Oklahoma State. You got Ivy. So, I mean, when I get off, I'm like, oh, I forgot this person. But, you got two from Virginia now on the Oklahoma State staff. So,
I think of you, Susie, and I mean this in a complimentary way, of being a learner. somebody that is actively out there working at your craft, getting better. You mentioned what drives winning, but and I watch you at NFCA conventions, and you're not just there attending; you're a part of things. You're engaged, and I respect the heck out of it. I was looking at your website too, your certifications that you have, or things like you're doing with S2 cognition. Can you talk, like, where does that come from in you? Where's that fire to continue to learn, especially within coaching? Where's that come from?
Well, it's funny. Last night in our What Drives Winning session, we were talking about there's kind of like two individuals in a sense, and I learned like ones that just have this raging sense of needing to master things, and then others that just have this wonderful ability to learn things quickly. And I think, I don't know, I've just been curious from the get go, and just again love to learn if there's a way to get better. But also, if I'm training or coaching or leading, somebody's investing and they're putting their trust in me. So if somebody does that, I don't take it lightly. And I feel it's my responsibility to be the best I can for them. The thing right now that has just been really revolutionary, that is the motor preferences. So certified in the motor preferences, I've done probably about 140, 150 assessments. And as doing that, I just wanted some time just put my head down and just like, oh, I'm so sorry, because I realized what I was training somebody in was completely opposite of what their body naturally wanted to do. And then I reflect, one was even my daughter. So, having things of that nature, you never know the answers. Like, you never know, and you just hope you can guide and lead somebody to help them become their best and not be a barrier. So, I guess maybe that's where it comes from.
For anybody that might not know exactly, when you say certified in motor preferences, what exactly does that mean?
So going and taking, there was some online stuff and then doing some in-person things. So a lot of that stuff now is in the college game, but in the youth. But it is being able to go do assessments and guide, and then the more that you're doing it, then you can really help an athlete discover what their body wants to say. That can be for a whole podcast. You can get me going down that road really really quickly, and we just took a detour in the car. So,
I could see your motors running, of like, you just like stopped yourself there.
oh yeah,
Just my outside lens, I can see, I feel like you're very good and innovative of like, hey, what are they doing at college? And then bringing that down to the youth level and work with your athletes. I'm curious, from your standpoint, you've clearly made the conscious choice to continue to coach at the youth level, both at high school and in travel ball. What is it? What is it about the, especially like the 18 and under and the travel ball world? Actually, I know you coached even younger than 18 and under too, but what is it about the
right,
youth game that really
right.
fires you up and makes you want to stay in coaching?
Well, the kind of when things really took off were during the time in my life. So a lot of it was I had already had family started. So even looking at that part, I'm not going to go, and kind of leads to an interesting question. So one time I was at a tournament, and a young coach came up to me and she was like, "Hey, like, did you ever consider college?" And I'm like, "Well, I had some people reach out to me." She goes, "Well, right now I don't know if I want to, I might have this college opportunity, or if I should stay here and continue to work with my travel organization." And I said, "Well, here's just a couple things to think about. Once you like have a family and settle down, it might be a little bit more challenging for you to go and just think about in that college bits, because now you have other people with you. But if you're by yourself, you're kind of, a little bit freer to do things. So maybe that would make it easier for you to do the college. And then, wherever you're at, you might find somebody, and there you go." Um, So I think part of it is kind of when things are in the time of your life. Uh, but I just feel just so grateful to be able to share my love and passion and actually have some people that appear to trust me with what I'm doing and allow me to share my joy. So um, high school is really great because you're with them every day. Travel ball is a little bit more challenging because you're spread out. So it's like apples and oranges. But right now, every day, so getting really to just be with them and I don't know, just fills my tank. So I'm just really lucky.
Because you coached 10 and under last year, right? What went into that
Yes.
decision, and what was that
Yes.
experience like after working with 18 of going back to 10U?
It reminds you of just the innocence and the joy. And one of the things I try to do is keep it that way for them because everything now just gets so fast forward
Yeah.
with technology, as we were talking about before. So, and, managing parents' expectations and just let them play. Like, nobody cares about recruiting at 10 and 12 and I mean and it's so hard though because just the outside forces. So part of the things is hopefully being able to help them since I started at 10U and took teams all the way up while I was still coaching 18, so I was coaching 18s and then had a 10U, then they were 12 and so then they all then merged up to 18 and then going back down. So hopefully some of my experience as a coach, as a parent, and now having a daughter in college, I can just say, hey, here's some things to be mindful of. This is what is really important, but I understand because I'm a parent too. So I understand your struggles.
I think managing parents' expectations in an age of technology and information, that could be its own course. Oftentimes in our travel ball world, when you're on the field, you're probably one of the few female coaches. I would like to say, because I get to, I'm watching, right, and I think there are more former players today who are coaching,
Yeah.
and I'm the type, hey, look, for anybody that is going to put their time out there to work with kids, I'm all about it. And I know that grueling hours that you guys do, especially in the summers and these week-long tournaments. So I applaud all the coaches who get out there. But can you speak specifically? Are you seeing more former players getting into coaching? And if not, what do you think are some of those barriers to, or maybe even perceptions of why former players might not look at travel ball
Mhm.
first to come back and coach?
Well, actually, I think there are a lot more females, and most of them now are former players. So I think things are being able to be created. So financially, that's helpful because it does cost money, and a lot of times when a coach is doing it, there's a lot of things that they end up paying for. So you even think of a young person, in this case, we'll say female, coming out of college or shortly thereafter, and she'd like to do it. I mean, they're just not the financial resources they haven't been able to build up to make it easier for maybe somebody older and more established and then coming back. So I think there's been a lot of ways, organizations, things crafting, way to be creative that make it now viable for somebody to go ahead and do that. So um, but that has always kind of been a question of why there hasn't been as many females coming. So, but I think that part right there is helping.
I grew up playing soccer and club soccer, and you had a paid coach, and that's what your club dues went towards, a paid
Mhm.
coach. So it was actually a position. I think softball is a little different, and it's almost like, nah, I don't want to
Right.
use the word piecemealing, but in order to make a career out of it, it is you probably combine camps, clinics, lessons, coaching, maybe events, or doing some different things. Is that kind of what you guys are doing, or just creating different revenue opportunities so that it can afford somebody to get into coaching full time?
Yeah, you just try to go and just again create ways. But I mean, I would say with our organization, I mean, again, we're just very, very lucky, just the way it works. And I know a lot of our coaches really give much more than they get back financially. So that's just so fortunate with that. But for that to be an expectation for somebody to be a part of you, I don't think so. I mean, things cost money. So, and to expect somebody to do things without getting any form of compensation, I don't know if that's really realistic.
Yeah.
So, it's trying to balance. And a lot of times, since softball, it's expensive, but when you look at the soccer and then what those things are, so part of it too is our mentality is not thinking in that same stratosphere. So it's kind of a balance between what people are used to paying for and then what somebody actually needs in order to be able to make that a career. So
I'm going to switch gears from coach to mom, and just speaking to parents out there of going through, and what is that world like these days, especially when you finished up the recruiting. Your daughter's now a freshman at Notre Dame, but can you just talk to what it's like to be a parent these days in our travel ball world, and what advice you have for parents out there who are listening?
one of the things that really helped me, and I go back to what drives winning, was talking about expectations. And this goes for players, parents, and this was perfect for me as I was doing my parent hat and just thinking of different things going on. And before a season starts, or you could be in it, but it would be writing down when things don't go how you want them to go. How would you like to see your reaction? I like to actually say response, because to me, react is defensive, response is being proactive. So, what would you want your response to be when adversity strikes, when things aren't meeting what you thought they were going to be it parent, athlete, coach? And so then when that happens, because it's going to, you can reflect upon what you wanted your responses to be. And then you can actually go, how am I doing? And let's say it's on a scale of 1 to 10. And if you think, hey, I'm giving myself a 4 because this is what I wanted them to be, this is what they are. And then what do I need to do to close that gap? And so it was wonderful because I had some of those moments myself. And I'm like, you know what? My response is not how I would want it to be or how it should be. And for me as a coach, I always do things through the eyes of a coach, whether I'm a parent, is what I want to have happen, I need to model. I have to model it. If I'm not modeling it, then anything coming to my mouth means nothing. And truth and integrity, your word, is for to me top. So it was a nice 2x4 across my face. And I said, hey, I got to get my head right, because I'm not responding, even though others might not have known that, but I knew inside the way my thinking needs to be. So, and then let's say if I'll put in the parents, that's the question. And you have all your parents there. And if every parent modeled frustration for whatever it is, man, that's going to be a horrible environment for the athlete. And that's who we're doing these things for. So it's like something, if coaches and parents are at odds, the athlete is the one that loses, always. So I like to say, hey, we're a team. We got parents, coaches, and then our athletes, but we're a team. We all got to be working together. And so framing the athlete, how would you want your response to be when adversity hits? Coach, what do you want it to be? Parent, what do you want it to be? And try to do that ahead of time. And then you can reflect. But if you're in the middle of it, then you just still, okay, what would you want that to be? What should it look like? And then kind of be those guides. And then also understand everybody has a story. So when things say, hey, get curious, not furious, you don't know what somebody's carrying. You don't know what's going on. And nowadays it seems like everybody wants to go, got you, or hey, she's that. And I'm like, did you take time to really ask, get to know?
I'm sitting here like just taking it in. I love that. I love that. And I could see like having those honest conversations too.
It's all about honest conversations and being vulnerable. And we tell like every interaction you have with every human being in life either builds trust or takes it away. Every interaction. And so am I doing things that are helping forge some bonds? And so then we can have some hard and challenging conversations and they can be both ways, or am I not? And so it's creating an environment where everybody can do their best. And it's coming from a place of love. And that's just daily interactions of just being kind and caring and curious and getting to know somebody's story. And when you can do that, it's incredible what can happen. And that's not even wins and losses, but just having these connections that you get me all started. So anyway,
Well, I think everything you just said to me is life. You know, a lot of that is life. And that's what I'm
yeah.
going to speak for you on when coaching these young athletes, the 16, 17, 18-year-old girls, the high school athletes, like that's what I think is so powerful. Is these are, yes, they're inside of
Mm-hmm.
softball, but everything you just said, like to me, that's life, that's business, that's, you know, those are teaching moments that these girls can take on for, and the parent too, can take on for a long time. Susie, let's wrap this up with we'll have some fun. We'll do a little rapid fire. So first thing that comes to
Oh God.
mind when I ask you, they're going to be all over the place. So um, first, because you
Okay.
are a learner, what are you reading or listening to right now?
I kind of get scattered. So, which is a good thing, but can be a bad thing because it can send me down stuff. So it'll be a podcast from like Andrew Huberman, or it could be Brian Kane. It's just like something captures and like, oh my gosh, that's a really interesting subject. So I don't know if I've ever sat down and read a book fully. I'll just go get snippets. Um, Again, the what drives winning, I'll go back to those things. So that one's kind of hard. I'm like a little bit like all over the place. So there's not just one thing. I just go and read this, read that, grab here. That's good. Oh my gosh, that's great. I like to listen to them, audiobooks. So
Why does that
I
not?
don't
This
know.
doesn't
That's
surprise me. I'm not shocked right now that you're in. What's you've mentioned what drives winning, so I'm going to make you
yeah,
answer something other than that. What's one
yeah, I
resource
got you.
right now that you think coaches really need, or coaches or parents in our youth game? What's one resource they should go to or need to check out?
The Major League Mindset. So we had Brandon Geyer do a thing with our organization. So he is just phenomenal. I There's just something about when you're doing with people that they just come from a place with a servant's heart, and he is just so caring. And so that's a place. He's got some new stuff. He's got some podcasts coming out. So I would check out his bit. Oh gosh, I know. Again, when we get off that, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm really enjoying this person. He's one that's right now uh, coming to mind.
Okay, I know this is a broad question, but what comes to mind first when I say what was your most memorable team that you've coached and why?
I would say probably last year's. So I'll go like a couple. So last year's travel team, that was pretty special because there was about 8 of the girls on the team had been together for probably 5 or 6 years, and some even together since 10U. So the bonds that they had created was really just so special, and that can be a bit challenging in travel ball just because of the different dynamics and the way things go. So to have a group that had been together since like 10U, 12U, and moving all the way up, um, when we were done at Alliance Nationals, we talk about soul moments. are soul memories and world memories. And world memories are just kind of fleeting. Okay, win a championship. Yeah, that's great. But the soul memories, those are the things when you can like hear a song, there's a smell, you see something and it just gets inside of you and it transports you back to that moment in time and it just brings just that inside joy. And so I think back to that team and then when we were together for that last time as a team and just a lot of soul memories and then watching them do their things now um, after the travel ball in college is just great and how they still are connected and every now and then I'll just get a random thing from one of them and I'm just like oh my little puppies so
It's awesome.
and high school that has been an incredible ride as well. Probably see when I say something, then it's like the other ones aren't important, and they just are. But that first year at O'Connell, following Coach Tommy, I mean, he was only like 100, like 840 victories and like 70 losses.
Decent.
He'd been there for 33 years. Yeah, decent. And so following that, I'm like, okay, we have no
Yeah.
place to go but down. So, and then doing and then seeing how they'd never not been in a championship, how they never, and then 20, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And Catherine was the pitcher. So coming in there, but that community was so, they just embraced me. And then when we won the state championship that year, the amount of pressure those players had was pretty immense because I mean, 33 years under the leadership of one, and their record was incredible. And now there's something new. And so, everybody's thinking the king is gone and the queen is gone. And now they'll come back down to earth. And so that was a pretty awesome year season. And then winning that again. And but it's sad when you're winning and it's almost like a relief, and it shouldn't be that way. Each year should be its own little thing and just be filled of joy. So that's why managing expectations a lot of times is a huge thing because of, again, what people feel it should be. And I'm like, well, there should be no expectations. Let's just get after it.
Well, Susie, you've clearly done all right filling those shoes because I looked it up and you were I think the last 4 years the coach of the year in Virginia. So I think you guys, I'm going to assume 2020 didn't happen. So 19, 21, 22, and 23 were all you. So.
Yeah, that was the coach. Yes, yeah. Well, um, the like I said, the players have just been just awesome, and the groundwork that was forged there at the school. Um, it's been an honor to continue that tradition.
Well, my
Just
last
very
question, and
fortunate.
this is it'll be alliance related, but just real quick. But for you,
Yes.
what would you
Yeah.
like to see? What as we're all working together and trying to do something for softball. What would you like to see happen in the next few years with the alliance?
So hopefully, people that do know me, I talk pretty straight. And again, it gets back to the word. And with the alliance, I wish individuals knew the depths of the collaboration between organizations and teams that you never would think would be working together. Um, and now, so I mean, the weekly meetings with all the different leagues comprised of all the different organizations around. I mean, that's every week. On the alliance, on the All Star committee, I mean, we're meeting like almost weekly now, going through trying to really get the best players. So it's just not a popularity or this team. And you've got Derek Allister, who you ask anybody is the gold standard of integrity. He is like, you know, Mount Rushmore as far as things that have been done in the softball community, a part of it. So just a collaboration between everybody, and it's sincere. And then just the forward thinking of trying to somehow get things down to the youth, and again trying to, how can we work with the people, the individuals that are being brought on board, now like South America, and just all the things, and Austin, all the stuff that's down there, really trying to go and create. I mean, even now we got the thing about the charts that you just put out there, like charts and stuff, putting in the buckets for the membership. But I'm serious, but like a pitching chart and the quality at bat chart, all those stuff, to try to give tools, is trying to give resources to the members, but also with the organizations really working together and saying, hey, how can we better our sport? How can we help our athletes and our families? And I think if people knew and could be part of it, seeing those conversations with individuals that on the playing field, like, we're getting after it, but outside, it really is a collective part. And that is the thing that I just wish people really understood, how much of that goes on. So it's really very exciting, and I'm just super honored to be a part of it. To the players thing, you got the players coming on there doing their bits. I mean, all the different stuff. It's just really cool. And Jamie, you're just marvelous at galvanizing the troops and putting things out there and bringing people in and allowing people to run with their passions and joys. Because at the end of the day, it's, can we create opportunities and give individuals a platform, a way to share their gifts? And it's so open-ended, and always looking for ways that we can allow people to share their gifts and just continue on to kind of trickle down and create little echoes. So it's really exciting,
I love
and
that.
it's great softball to boot. It's great softball.
It is.
So
It is great softball. I'll never forget. There's a couple moments of just watching games, and like, me, I'm running around at our national events, but actually just getting to sit down and take in some of these games. I'm like, this is good softball. And honestly, one of them was at our 10U national championship last year. It was a 3-2 game at 10 and under. Also, and it
wow,
went 7 innings. I'm
yes,
like, this is incredible softball. So, and Suzy, thank you
yes,
for sharing that. It's like our best kept secret, or showing the world that we can all actually work together. But it's the only way we're going to grow,
yes.
in my opinion. So
That's
it's been really fun.
that's
I'm
exactly
glad
right.
you're a part of it.
It's great to be a part of it as well. So,
Thanks for
and this has been a blast.
thanks for joining me in the car ride home. I think we finally made it to
Yes.
our destination.